November 18th, 2022. I upload this video to YouTube, and in it, I make a declaration that in 1 year's time, my gaming backlog would be completed. This list, this nearly 90 games meticulously curated for my interest, measured for time to beat at just over 1,600 hours, and organized neatly into a live spreadsheet that you all could check up on throughout the year, I vowed would be finished. And you don't need to go watch that video before watching this one. You can, it'll make this one a bigger payoff, but I'll recap what's important. Now, the gaming backlog is not something most people seriously talk about ever finishing, right? There's always going to be more games, and if anything, we joke about the absurdity of just how big ours is getting, especially with like 8 realistic Game of the Year contenders this year. But despite the odds, I couldn't put up with the shame of having never played a Resident Evil game before. I was tired of being told to play Outer Wilds. I was ready to finally get to more of those weeb games that make me way too emotional. I wanted this thing empty so that I could feel lighter. And so, the 1 year younger me set out to finally conquer the unconquerable. That stupid fuck. And now, here we are, November 2023. My time is up. Here's what I've done. I have meticulously taken notes all year, my thoughts on each game recorded diligently as I've played them. Here I am in February gushing about how Portal 2 might be the perfect game. Here's a log from July, my first time with Mass Effect, where I describe it as Star Trek with balls. In March, The Last of Us, another game I'd somehow never played and remained unspoiled to, reminded me of evacuating from a hurricane as a child. There are also notes taken about my general thoughts on this method, some of which make sense, others not so much. Also, don't forget, Chocolate Tornado. What is Chocolate Tornado? Why am I not meant to forget it? I wrote this? I also have stats. I spend an average of 13.5 hours per game, but only the games that I actually beat. If you factor in the ones I decided to stop playing, then hang on, you guys probably have questions, right? Were you able to finish it? What did you play? Should I try this too? I'll answer all of that. We're gonna have fun. But I want to be real with you for a second. I rewatched last year's video in preparation for writing this one because it's been so long and so much has happened that I don't remember exactly what I promised you then. And one thing that stuck out to me is this question that was never answered. Would it make you feel better to finish your gaming backlog? Is it worth it? Does finishing the list bring happiness? Do I feel better? Will you, if you do this? And I think that's the ultimate question I would like to answer today. We will talk about what I played, what I liked, what about this method worked, what didn't, the data I collected, etc. But quite simply, I want to tell you a story. And to do that, we have to start here. The first thing to get out of the way is that I've cheated a little bit. I got a head start. The first game I play on the backlog is Xenoblade Chronicles, and I actually finish it in October. But I consider it the first game in the backlog because it is the one that inspired me to do this. It is a game that I shed a tear to, that genuinely feels like a journey. It is unquestionably a man game, which is why this is the spark that ignited the shitstorm I put myself through this year. Shitstorm! Chocolate Tornado? Was that? Nah, that doesn't seem right. What I love about Xenoblade is that it's a weird JRPG plot that actually makes sense. Usually these plots go something like this, where as time goes on, your questions increase and then just kind of nah. But Xenoblade 1 actually makes a nice pretty graph where it all comes together in the end. I remember my jaw genuinely dropping when I realized what exactly this world was. If you know, you know. And so, with that being done and my heart filled with joyous, foolish ambition, it was on to November. God of War is next on the docket, and this is not only to appease my FOMO from everyone talking about it back in 2018, it is also to touch the series for the first time ever. My only memory of Kratos is watching my cousin play this back in the day. But instead, what I get is a quiet, moving exploration of boyhood, fatherhood, and confronting the things about ourselves that we never want to see in our children. This game is beautiful, and it works for me for 2 reasons. One, I know this is the Kratos of the past and kind of nothing else. As I play, it's almost like his reputation, the whispers of his past that followed him around in the game, had found their way into the real world to me.
I know you're a god. Not of this realm, but there's no mistaking it.
I know what a lot of the NPCs know, that Kratos was a bad man, but not really why he was. This makes for a nice harmony with the narrative as I play. The other reason is that Atreus had also never played God of War, so every time he asks a question, I'm like, yeah, what about that actually? I am honored to have played this. It's a man game. Ragnarok is added to the list. Next is Pokemon Scarlet. You've seen this movie before. Let's fast forward. Finally, I end the month with a short little indie game called Detention, which was developed by the same studio behind Devotion, another game that's on this list that I've heard a lot about, so I figured Detention is gas. And it's, well, it is gas, but it's like Safeway gas. You probably don't want to stop here unless you have to. It's a little point-and-click horror game with no shortage of unsettling, gorgeous imagery. The soundtrack works, the narrative works, the enemies work a little too well. They are frightening, but like the thing in Soma, it's only scary the first time, and then it just kind of sours into an annoyance. I want to love this, but I only like it. And the same can be said of my progress on the backlog as this cold November draws to a close. I am happy with what I played, but at only 4 out of 85 games done, already about 3 games behind pace, how can I not feel behind? But it's fine, I tell myself. I had to make the backlog video itself this month. I'll have more time in the coming months. I would not have more time. Okay, before we continue, I've got to pay the bills. This video is brought to you by Manscaped. Gentlemen, around the holidays, we spare no expense for those that we love. We show our gratitude for them by buying them gifts, spending time with them, and showing up at their house to eat all of their food. So why don't you show the same appreciation for your family jewels with the new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra from Manscaped? Personal grooming is one of the best ways to show yourself some love, and this absolute beast of a machine from Manscaped will make that process seamless. With the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, they have prioritized comfort and ease with dual skin-safe blade heads, upgraded trimmer blade, and interchangeable foil blade for enhanced performance. The upgraded trimmer is longer, wider, trimmier, meant to handle business in less passes. And the foil blade captures even the finest, peskiest hairs, all while respecting those delicate areas. And thanks to an attached LED, this bad boy even lights the way so that you can see what you're doing. Even if you're in the shower, water won't stop you. So head on over to manscaped.com and show yourself some gratitude with the new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra today. And don't miss out on 20% off plus free international shipping at checkout when you use the promo code Daryl at checkout. That's 20% off plus free shipping with promo code Daryl at manscaped.com. Believe me, lads, your balls will thank you. Thanks again to Manscaped for sponsoring. Now back to the show. You know what's refreshing around the holidays? A little bit of radio-induced possession. Oxenfree is a spooky little graphic novel-style game with multiple endings and decisions that matter and all that good I want video games that hurt me energy. I enjoy this one. The interactions between characters feel natural, the conversations dance instead of march. The responses you choose feel in character for who you're playing as and as the player, which is hard to pull off. How many times have you been given dialogue options and thought, cool, so I guess I'm an asshole in this scene? Oxenfree is great. On to the next. I would now like to read to you the first sentence of my thoughts on the Somnium Files last December. What the fuck? The stupidest game I have ever played, and yet somehow I absolutely loved every second of it. There are games out there that produce weird fan bases. This is a game that feels like it is produced by a weird fan base. It knows it's silly, it doesn't take itself too seriously, it doesn't rush, and because of these, some of the plot twists and bigger moments kick my legs out from under me and hit me with the people's elbow. And the way it hides the true killer all along is absolutely bonkers. The voice acting was top, and damn it, I want to tell you about the Somniums, but time's a ticking.
Playtime's over. Let's begin.
Death's Door, yeah baby, this game knows how to get down. It feels like a dark Wind Waker, but with difficulty that will sneak up on you and become super tough in the final act. It is witty, it is charming, it is tight, Mostly I have a few of those I swear to God I hit roll spots, but you know how those go. Oh, and there's this icy floor area where you slide around and certain heavy moves that are generally unsafe become safe here because you can hit them as you slide away out of danger like this. Okay, moving on. Less than 11 months left. Next is Fury, a game that just doesn't agree with me for some reason. I didn't write much about it. The first two bosses make me feel like a superhero when I finally figure them out, but when I get to this shield guy, I just can't seem to find a rhythm. After a few failed attempts, I abandon it. This is the first game I don't roll credits on, which, if you remember from last year, I made it clear, I don't have to beat everything. That is a piece I'm allowing for myself. I try to give myself a break, but it still bothers me a bit. Hey, current day, Daryl here. Sorry to interrupt. If I could just interject here really quick, I do need to pay a compliment to this spreadsheet method. One thing I was concerned about playing all these games back to back was that they would sort of just start to blur together and I wouldn't remember a ton of them. But as I'm sitting here writing the script, looking at a bundle of games I played in a rush a year ago, I remember the details of them all shockingly well because I did take the time to write about them. I did this for every game. What was that? Oh, I never wrote about Danganronpa 2. But other than that, I did this for every game I played. There is research suggesting that writing consolidates memory, so one thing to take away if you are considering doing your backlog like this is writing your thoughts about each game you play once you finish. I really think it'll help you process and more accurately recall your adventure later. For me, not only did it do that, but it made me feel all warm and fuzzy remembering how it felt to go on that journey. It ensured it wasn't just another game on the list, it preserved it as a fond memory to look back on. Anyways, back to December. Fury is behind me now. I shake off the disappointment. Next, it's on to Final Fantasy IX, and you just know that this one is a banger. Of all the Final Fantasies I had on the list, this is the one that everyone said to keep, so I dove right into this hustling, bustling world to find out what... Yeah, I quit this one after like 3 hours, and that really does bother me. But it is slow. I get stuck in this town for the longest time trying to run errands essentially until the game finally lets me start the adventure. Battles are slow to load, tents don't heal fallen party members, which I guess is a throwback to older Final Fantasies. I just quickly grow tired of wrestling with it to let me have the fun I am expecting. Meanwhile, and probably more relevant to my decision to abandon, December is coming to a close, and I have barely gotten through 5 games. Merry Christmas, everybody. Okay, it's a new year. To hell with resolutions. Let's make a bad decision right out the gate. I add more games to the backlog. I see a sale on Steam that reminds me of a series somehow none of you recommended to me back in that original backlog optimization stream. And that series is Portal. Having never touched either, both of them are added. I play them back to back. I fall in love. I won't spend too long here because everyone has had over a decade to love and cherish these, but man. Historically, puzzle games have not been for me, and yet this game somehow makes me adore them. It's so infinitely clever, both in its design and in its writing. GLaDOS is easily one of the best villains in a game ever. Portal 2 might be the perfect game, as I hinted at earlier, and I'm still grinning at the part where he kills us.
Well, this is the part where he kills us.
Hello, this is the part where I kill you. Had a bit of a brainwave. There I was.
How have I never played this? Then it was time. In case you missed it, I not only played this last January, but the following month, I made an extensively in-depth video about it. I've said enough about Outer Wilds at this point. It is quite simply a gift and unquestionably a man game. 3 games down, and the month is still young. At this point, I really want to keep the momentum going, but as many people have reported to me in the past, I am also having a tough time deciding what to play next. Choice paralysis is unmerciful. There is so much to pick from. And this is the first of several times this year where I am immensely grateful for having data about each game listed on this spreadsheet. It suddenly makes choosing the next game a simple process of elimination. First of all, do I own the game? I've already blown a bunch of money on Magic the Gathering this month, so let's settle on something I have. Second, how long of a game am I looking for? I've got to get started on a script, so maybe something not too big. I've already done puzzles and space exploration, maybe something a little less involved. It doesn't take me long to arrive at a decision, and thanks to this method, it doesn't take me long the entire year. Having this data is helpful. If you want to do this, make sure you have it. It's your sword and shield against choice paralysis. And along comes the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, a game I'd seen a little bit of and was under the impression it would be pretty short, but I am shocked to find myself falling deeper and deeper into this whirlpool of a meta-narrative. It's one of the few games you'll hear me say this about today: I've never really played anything quite like it. There are no comparisons. 4 games down. I start Catherine full body and then abandon it about 2 hours in. I watched my friend play it way back in the day, and in the process of researching a video last year, I was spoiled to all of the endings, and yeah, wouldn't you know it, suddenly not interested in finishing. I blink, and then January comes to a close. I have touched, 5 games? I didn't know how many would end up on the backlog at the time once new releases were factored in and other ones were added on a whim like Portal, but I knew that it was going to be in the neighborhood of 90, meaning I needed to be putting away 7 to 8 games a month, and for the 3rd straight month, that had not happened. I am chronically behind pace. This behemoth of a list is still snorting and sweating just over my shoulder, but all I can do is move forward. February will be better, surely, but channel work begins to steadily pick up. I force myself to address a drastic miscalculation. Allow me to take you through my typical workday to illustrate a point. 4:45 a.m. I wake up, and from 5 to 7, I either go work on a video or play a game depending on how pressing the next video's release date is. At 7, I take my 2 dogs out and feed them. Then, I log into my work from home day job. Not many of you know this, but YouTube is not full-time for me yet, so from 7 to 4, barring an hour lunch break, I can neither play games nor work on videos. In the evenings, between being a husband, caring for the dogs, running errands, and cooking dinner, I can usually find around 2 solid hours to myself. The weekends are always a wild card, but typically, this is where I get most of my YouTube work done. There is often time for gaming, but it just depends on how much household stuff we have to do, then how much YouTube stuff I have to do, then I can potentially play a game. This is the real culprit behind my abysmal pace, I assert one morning as I gaze at the wall of titles. At 1,600 hours, I need over 4 hours a day to complete everything. I pointed this out last year. If 3 weeks out of the month I have to prioritize video production, you see the problem, I can tell. How on earth did I not? Panic begins to set in. It's February. Maybe by next November, everyone will have just forgotten about this. Maybe I'll just push the follow-up video back. No, there's still a way. Something has to give, and so something will. In a desperate attempt to keep pace, whether consciously or perhaps subconsciously, I do the only thing I can. I play games, and I don't finish them. My patience for Observer is extremely thin. This is a cyberpunk detective game, and I can't figure out how to progress past the first room. I abandon it after a confusing hour. I give Prey a chance. The opening is sensational. This is how you open a game. I wish I had played this before the elevator video. And then, a few hours in, my enthusiasm vaporizes. The combat is vexing me. Maybe shooters aren't my thing, I wonder. There was a moral conundrum with a prisoner that I find especially remarkable, but then I get one-shotted by an electrical plug. I've had enough. Skill issue, I know, but abandoned. Luigi's Mansion 3 is cute, but the flavor of it turns to ash on my tongue 2 hours in. Abandoned. And then finally, in the highlight of the month, Dishonored 2 makes me realize that stealth games are harder than FromSoft games. It is clear that Dishonored 2 is brilliant. The Clockwork Mansion is incredible. Shorting out the Clockwork soldiers and making them do my dirty work makes me feel almost as cool as that time in BioShock when I made 2 big daddies fight each other, but I don't have the patience to finish it out. The plot is completely lost on me as I have never played Dishonored 1. Every time haunted Zachary Quinto comes on screen, I innocently smile. lost as a puppy watching a chess match. Maybe I'll revisit this someday. Maybe I'll enjoy it more if I play them in the right order. Abandoned. Hey, current day, Daryl again. In hindsight, if you're planning to plot out your backlog like I did, this section may not be the best advice for how you know when it's time to abandon a game. What you're seeing here is stress-induced hasty decision-making. Knowing when it's time to quit a game is a delicate art, but in reality, I think it's different for everyone. Never feel like you owe it to a game to try X amount of it, though. If you aren't feeling it, you don't have to explain yourself. It's meant to be fun, and if you feel like you've given it a fair shot and it's not that, let it go. Oh, and don't be ashamed of walkthroughs if you need a little bit of help. I think one of those would have helped me with a lot of these games because they'll come in handy in a few months when I get impatient for some games that I'm super grateful I finished. So yeah, give games what you feel like is enough. With the exception of Dishonored, I don't think I did that here. I hope you can learn from my mistakes. Okay, back to February me. It is at this point that I decide to edit the backlog a bit. Because my patience is at an all-time low, I scrap Spiritfarer and Kirby in the Forgotten Land from the list because I suddenly realize I have absolutely no desire to play them despite a handful of recommendations. Something has broken in me this February. My give-a-damn crops are beginning to wilt from this long winter. I'm disappointed in myself, but I can't help but notice a tiny ripple of peace wash over my soul at seeing these two rows deleted. I replace Resi 4 with Resi 4 Remake because it looks delightful but feels silly to play both games. I add Signalis to replace Spiritfarer on account of actually being interested in it. February draws to a close, I'm drowned in work, and despite playing a handful of things, I don't beat a single game the entire month. I decide that what I need is a little life, a little fire, something that'll get me out of my seat, something that'll make me smile, something like Danganronpa 2. No, that's not it. I did not beat this game. I got a few hours in, and it was not it, dog. I remember liking the first one, but I'm older now. This isn't for me anymore. But, I do accept that this is just going to be extremely tough. Mama didn't raise no bitch. Hand me The Last of Us. I've never played. And damn it, boy, if this game doesn't jump up and remind me that this project is supposed to be fun. I wholeheartedly do not expect to like this as much as I do, especially considering all the expectations I have about it being this big masterpiece. But it actually is that good. It's a man game. I want to make a video about why this is such a personal experience for me, but only 8 months left. Gotta keep moving. After abandoning Danganronpa 2, I decide that this list should prioritize new genres and series as things I've not touched yet. So at this point, I take off Bioshock 2 and replace it with Gravity Rush. And Gravity Rush is an absolute... It's fine. It's good. It's fun. The movement really works when it works, and doesn't when it doesn't. The presentation is all there, the story is all there, and Kat is cute as a button. Damn, 2 games beat, I'm on a roll. Tetris effect, yes sir, everything I expected. I'm playing Tetris, but my soul is also at one with the universe and everyone in it. This shit has my mind more blown than a One Piece fan discovering that other anime exist.
Now you're back, Mr. Pokilo, and you'll tell us what to do! Right? You've got a plan or something, right, Mr. Pokilo? Right?
That's right, baby. Daddy's here. Everything's gonna be alright.
I wasn't prepared for Psychonauts. Never have I ever played it, never seen it, never knew what it was about, anything. But when I tell you that booting it up made me crave goldfish, a lightsaber Go-Gurt, and a zoo book, I mean it from the bottom of my heart. This game somehow makes me feel like a kid without relying on any nostalgia. I am having a blasty blast playing this. Until that last area, don't talk about that. Anyways, 4 in a row, the streak lives. I boot up Remnants of Nazith. It kicks my ass, I give up, RIP streak. Then, on one spontaneous evening with the lads in the Discord call, I decide to add a game called The Complex Found Footage. All the liminal space talk this year has me feeling some kind of way, and it only takes about an hour to beat this, but it is a very dense hour. I'm also a coward. But March, I realize, is the first time I've actually gotten through 7 games, so with a little bit of luck, I could get right back in this thing. I have a few days left, so I boot up Persona 4 Golden, which... Whoa, hang on. What? Oh man, this was so much fun, but why is it so hot all of a sudden? No. No! Persona 4 Golden consumes all of April and all of May. Per my very brief notes, the entire month of April consists of 3 things: going on a week-long vacation, being behind on a video, and playing Persona 4 Golden. Oh, I think I also sold a Backlog shirt that like no one bought. May, it appears I did in fact start Tears of the Kingdom with everyone else. I even played some shorter games, One Shot, which, yes, I do seem to have some footage for, and Citizen Sleeper. Oh yeah, Citizen Sleeper, that was like really good. It was like astonishingly good. I can't believe I liked a tabletop RPG style story. Maybe there's hope for Disco Elysium. Gave this a few hours, it felt like 2D Bloodborne to me. That's worth another look one day. Tears of the Kingdom, yeah, I mean, that's been magnificent, but Persona 4 Golden, man, what did you do to me? Where did the time go? A dark, swirling storm cell of dread begins to roll in as I swallow the fact that it's taken me 2 months to put away 3.5 games. But I have a realization in this moment. A gust of clarity parts the clouds of my anxiety, and I realize that time flew because I had fun playing Persona 4, because I didn't rush through it. It pacified me. It allowed me to focus. Some of my best work on the channel this year comes out during this window, and I realize that this entire Backlog project is a fucking joke. You can't play all these games in this short of a window and expect to actually enjoy them. You can't rush it and still have fun. You can't. Yes, you can. The problem is RPGs. They're far too long. I can't afford another Persona 4 Golden. Plus, it's well established that I like RPGs. There's nothing to discover here. So the following RPGs I decide would be saved for after the Backlog. I like this idea of baby Mosesing away titles that I know I won't want to rush. This is the play, and it makes up for all the time I lost. I'm back in the game, right on schedule. I roll credits on Tears of the Kingdom. What can I say that hasn't already been said? Tears of the Daryl. I decide to scrap these 3 games off the list simply because I want to. I'm tired of feigning interest in them just because other people have sung their praises. I play Happy Game. It is not a happy game. I play Abzu. It is beautiful, colorful, vibrant, inspiring, and it makes me have to pee. I abandoned Cultist Simulator after losing patience with it. I read online that the entire point is to be lost at first, then figure things out as you go. Once again, my patience is Oreo Thins thin, and I'm no longer ashamed of it. Milk outside a bag of milk outside a bag of milk feels like it's brilliant if you notice all of the little subtleties of the narrative, but there is no time for that. I finish it and move on before my thoughts have a chance to really unpack what I've just played. It bothers me that this doesn't bother me. But I find solace in the fact that after shelving a few titles, saving others for later, and beating some, 19 games have been crossed off in the last 3 months, not far off the 7 to 8 game per month pace. I've stopped the bleeding from Persona. Yukiko's laughter echoes in my mind. She does a lot of that in that game. I smile. This might work out after all. I've been showing you a lot of stats throughout this video, and I hope that's been nice, but there's a stat that I notice at the start of July, a stat that I have not been tracking. And this figure makes me all at once realize how much I have truly shat the bed. Street Fighter VI was not on the original Backlog. I add it upon discovering this because I simply cannot have spent this kind of time on a game and not see it as a green line in this spreadsheet. I absolutely adore Street Fighter. I realize I'm desperate to play it every hour. I am in the desert and it is water. It is everything I loved about Guilty Gear, except I firmly understand all the mechanics and I'm actually playing as an upper tier character now. I have a reliable anti-air, I have reliable plus on-block options, I have abs of steel, but I know that I'm already behind on the Backlog, so behind that I had to literally make the list shorter because it was too fucking hard, and yet here I am. shamelessly wasting hours upon hours I desperately need by bitching about motor controls and trying to get comfortable with the JP matchup. And I don't want to make it seem like this was all in July. The game came out in June and it continues to plague me well into September, but looking at this figure makes me realize that I have slowly been surrendering. I have accepted my fate. This list isn't getting done, and furthermore, I don't think I really care. The video can be about how impossible this task really is. It can be a big joke. Look how miserably I failed. You can't optimize your life around experiences. You truly just need to be spontaneous and enjoy yourself. And maybe there's truth to that. Maybe I do feel that way. All I know at this point really is that I'm tired. The second half of July arrives. Despite my growing apathy, I still go through the motions. I play Shadow of the Colossus. I get to about the 13th one. Between the soundtrack and the grand scale of the fights, it's abundantly clear why this is so special to so many people, but parts are slow and grating. This Colossus seems to have me in some kind of unending loop where I get back control of my character just as it hits me again. I get up and am immediately hit. This continues beyond my control until the game respawns me earlier in the fight, asking me to repeat the long, tedious cat and mouse game to get back to this point. I refuse, and instead watch the remainder of the game on YouTube. Abandoned. I remove the following games from the list as I seem to have lost interest in them, or I simply feel like I don't have time for them. It's tough to say. Hey, welcome back. You can kind of see me struggling with when to remove games from the list, but I think that stems from the fact that keeping a list doesn't allow you to forget about games. If you're disciplined, you write everything down you might be interested in, and that's both a blessing and a curse if you can't say no to adding things. If you aren't careful, it will inflate your backlog very quickly and overwhelm you. This is one of the things I got sandbagged by in this year. A Patreon comment I got not long ago shared in this sentiment. If you don't write a game down and then completely forget about it, well, there's a chance it wasn't important enough to remember anyways. Something I wish I had thought about at the start of all this. Back to July. I find time to play and abandon Dear Esther. I get lost and drown. I can't even complete a walking sim. As the last week of the month approaches, I decide it's time for something I've been missing out on since 2007. Mass Effect is the next game that reminds me that this is supposed to be fun, because it is fun. The combat has moments of jank, but you put that aside and you can barely tell it's a 16-year-old game. The amount of times I say hell yeah during my time with this game is embarrassing, but I can't help but deeply care for all of my crew. It's so cheesy sometimes, and yet a smile continually stretches across my face over and over during my time with it. July ends up being at least a little productive, but I can't help but kick myself for letting Street Fighter illustrate how much time I can find and then just waste. Then my thoughts betray me. I don't think it was a waste though. I think I loved every second of grinding Street Fighter, even if it did derail some stupid backlog project. I settle into a reluctant rhythm in August. I still make a little time for Street Fighter almost every day, but I only beat one game, Signalis. I play a few others though for several hours each. Rain World is stressful in waves, but is contrasted nicely with periods of warmth and safety. The Long Dark doesn't really hook me, but I'm happy to have tried it. What the Golf is a hoot. I decide to save it for the next time I go visit my golfing buddy back home. Crosscode manages to snatch 13 hours of my time as I wander its brilliantly designed dungeons and listen to its sneaky good story before I realize it's far too special for me to rush. I decide to save it for later when I can really enjoy it. The same can be said of Bloodborne, even if I hate that I have to grind for blood vials to heal instead of just having a good old reliable Estus flask. And of course, Signalis reminds me that I actually love survival horror. I always have since Dead Space back in the day, I just haven't played enough of the genre. That'll change soon. Overall, I look back on August fondly. Even if I didn't beat everything, I touched a lot, and it feels like enough. If there's anything I'm grateful for in this backlog process, is that once upon a time, it deeply bothered me that I hadn't played quintessential games. I hated knowing that other essayists were playing something interesting and I wasn't going to be the first to talk about it. I hated being left out of a conversation because, oh, I've never played Halo, I've never played Metal Gear Solid. This backlog project cured me of that. When September arrives, I could not care less what other people have or have not played. I do not care what I am supposed to have played as a YouTuber. I do not care what anyone thinks about how I spend my time. Suddenly this all becomes very funny because I could just put my head down and start playing games, but instead I start September by reading a book. I started a book. Like what? I knew nothing about this book. We were in Barnes & Noble and my wife said, "I heard this is pretty good." And I was like, my time has come. What? I used to procrastinate reading books with video games. Now I'm procrastinating video games with a book? I stop myself about 3 chapters in. Something deep inside me reaches up and grabs me. Daryl, you can't do this. For fuck's sake, man. How deep of a hole are we going to dig here? I closed the book. You're right, Daryl. There's still hope. Maybe if I just knock out some shorter games, I can build some momentum. To hell with this book. Ugh, get away from me. Disgusting. I'm above you. So anyways, I read the entire book. It's really good. And then I decided to go play some short indies. Played Hyperbolica. It was trippy, but I'll keep it a buck. It made me motion sick, so I abandoned it. Played Superliminal instead. Beat it. It was oddly inspiring at the end. Wasn't expecting that. Played some Manifold Garden. It was unbelievably trippy. I wanted to experience that infinite architecture firsthand, and I did until I eventually got burned out on puzzles and abandoned it. Next was Sayonara Wild Hearts, and it was the best way I can describe it is several contained but intense religious experiences, many emotional breakdowns. Every part was my favorite part. It was gorgeous, it was moving, it was dramatic, I actually just watched this one on YouTube, I've got to be honest with you. I stand by what I said, but when I was considering starting it, I decided to look up some gameplay, and before I knew it, an hour had passed and I'd watched the whole thing. It's a damn good game. Please go play it, actually. Despite how hopeless things felt at this point and how little I actually cared what happened, I did realize as October drew near that I only really had October left. Most of November would be spent writing this video, so I only had just over a month left to actually play stuff. My heart flutters at the prospect of being done. Even if I fell short, it would be over and then I could go play some of those beautiful RPGs I set aside, which makes me think, how ass backwards is it that I'm excited to be done playing games so that I can go play games? Somehow I've turned something I love into a chore. Last year I talked about Etika, Xenoblade 2, and how completely blown away he looked watching those credits, all to illustrate how none of us want to miss an experience like that. The point of the backlog for all of us is obviously to find these games, the ones that when you watch the credits roll, leave you speechless, short of perhaps just a simple, man. But something I neglected to mention was that he spent like over 500 hours playing it. The point being, it takes time to cultivate love for a game or a story or anything in life, and that's something that's extremely tough to do when you're constantly looking ahead to the next thing. All summer, I find myself in a perpetual angry fog. I am irritated at the smallest things for months. Small daily responsibilities infuriate me. I feel like I can't rest or really enjoy spending more than a few hours on anything. Time is ticking. There is always something next I have to do, be it a video or an errand or a game or an email, and I can't shake it. It's like sleepwalking with tacks in my shoes. So I take a break, and I confide in my wife about this. She then says something very wise. You can't be present when you're always looking forward. You just need to live in the moment. It hits me that this is what made Street Fighter such a release for me. There is nothing to cross off about it. It's fun for the sake of being fun, and I want to play it. And don't get me wrong, there's still quite a bit on the list at this point I want to play, but the time limit melted away all of the wonder and thrill of them down into boxes to be checked, lines in an Excel sheet. It's at this point, clarity floods my eyes for the first time all year, and I see what needs to happen. I have a plan. It's go time. The first thing I need to do is be realistic. This is how much time I have to play with only about 5 weeks left, so unfortunately, I make the decision to remove these games from the backlog on the basis of lack of interest. Next, I save these for later, since I'm either familiar with them or their sequels. This is the last round of removals. Everything remaining is getting played. I make a bold decision. I boot up a 30-hour game because once again, it's time for something to remind me why I'm doing this, and 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim is exactly that. This is one of those games that is truly unlike anything I've ever played. Nothing else really tells a story the way this game does. There are 13 main characters. This should be overwhelming, but I embrace its wildly intertwining story and find myself blissfully tangled in its web. Its graph sort of looks like this. This character is my favorite, I decide. No. This is my favorite character. Hang on, no, wait. This is my favorite character. No, this is my favorite. It's one of those games. Even the combat is, Natsuno is actually my favorite though. Even the combat is a delight. I hear whispers that it's the best story in gaming, which, you know, like how do you define that? But it's certainly one that I think will stand the test of time and is told unlike anything else I've ever seen. Man, this takes almost 2 weeks, but I'm not discouraged anymore. On a whim, I even throw a short new game on the list.
You're on a path in the woods, and at the end of that path is a cabin. And in the basement of that cabin is a princess. You're here to slay her. If you don't, it will be the end of the world.
Slay the Princess, or as I like to call it, I Can Fix Her Simulator, is yet another game that I think I would have enjoyed much more if I wasn't on the clock. It's a little decisions matter visual novel that I probably should have saved for after this, but it's clear that there was a lot under the hood here. Happy to have played it, I move on. Then, I accidentally start playing Sea of Stars because I find myself having to wait on something which I don't have time to do. So here I am, enjoying a game I pretty much knew I was going to enjoy, dreamlike pixel art, a story that promises to wow, combat that likens to the old Alpha Dream Mario and Luigi RPGs. Everything about this game is clicking for me right down to the— oh shit! Here we go! This is what I had to wait on. I saved Sea of Stars for later. It's time to lose my Resident Evil virginity. Time to see what the buzz is all about, and hot damn, this is one fat bumblebee. I had the wrong impression of Resi. I thought it was this uber serious hardcore horror series, and it kind of is, but it's also so silly and video gamey sometimes. It's corny and it knows it. Music, characters, level design, puzzles, location? The castle especially blows me away. Over the 3 days I play this game, it rains on every one of them after not raining for weeks, and as someone who adores rainstorms, this weekend felt like a perfect little slice of heaven. Man, this is why I do this. This is what the backlog is for. Next is Devil May Cry 5. Now, I've never played a DMC game. I don't fully understand what is happening in this plot, but it's so fucking cool! I do roll credits on this, but I can tell I've only scratched the surface of really playing a DMC game. I was winning and progressing, but it felt like I was letting the game down by not playing perfectly. I think at some point I'll go back and do just that. Then I put about 2 hours into Disco Elysium. Immediately I can see that the writing here is tremendous, off the charts. Even the premise of waking up, being informed you're a detective and clumsily investigating a death is fantastic, but I look at all of the D&D elements and quickly become overwhelmed. I abandon it for now. Maybe I'll come back to it down the line. And then What the hell is this game? Lisa the Painful. Initially, I get lost and abandoned after playing on the Switch handheld one morning, but a few weeks later, to get some footage, I start the game over and things start to click. Maybe I should give this another look. I save it for later. Devotion is next, since Halloween is approaching, and Devotion is... Would you believe me if I told you this game is actually kind of beautiful at the end? And on Halloween night, I finish Silent Hill 2. The best way I can describe this game is that I hate every second of my time with it, and yet I can't stop thinking about it. Most horror games tease you and poke you, you scream and giggle. You're playing them because you want to be scared and they want to scare you. But when I walk through the foggy streets and mildewing hallways of Silent Hill, I don't want to be here. The sound design, the dissonant music, the unforgiving camera, the clumsy controls, the subtle reflections of James's subconscious all just make this the most unfun game I could possibly be playing, and yet again, it stays with me. Guess it's time to add to the mountain of Silent Hill 2 videos out there. Then something hits me. I'm making healthy progress. At 7 games down, some being pretty sizable ones, I'm on a pace that, had I sustained for the entire year, I might have been able to actually do this the way I intended. And furthermore, I'm having more fun than I've had all year. It's suddenly easy to put away games now that the pressure is off. In case it wasn't already blindingly clear, this is even more evidence that the time limit is the issue. But I'm also left with the discovery that this year has fostered a great habit in me. I'm wanting to play more games. I'm deciding what to play next quicker. I'm playing more efficiently, and I'm not afraid to try any genre. The backlog was a giant swirling vortex of panic that followed me all year, but if you take away the time limit, the winds subside, and I discover that those winds are carrying every variety of sweet, delectable experience imaginable. Chocolate tornado. This method works when you remove the deadline. And even if I didn't finish on the terms I would have liked, I'm still left with the habits it developed. The sun goes down and it rises on November. There is only one game left. November is the month I actually have to write the script, so I only have a little bit of time to work with. Now before I boot up this final 8-hour game, I go back and check my list of removed games. Is there anything here I feel like I can squeeze in to help my numbers? Is there anything I regret taking off? And at this point, I notice just how many there are. I stare at this lethal gash that has been taken out of the original list that I spent so much time crafting 1 year ago. My inner dialogues begin to argue. Part of me feels like I let you all down. This voice thinks that I failed the hundreds of thousands of people that watched that video last year. I'm nowhere close to what I intended. I didn't even try almost half the list. And another voice calmly says, yes, but let's be honest, you don't want to try any of these. You just want to be able to say that you did. I listen to both voices, and I begin the final game on the backlog, a game that I had no clue how much I needed to play. And that game is Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, a game unlike anything I have ever played. Here's what climbing a ladder in Hellblade is like.
Climb. She has to climb. Look down. Don't look down. Look down. Down. Look down. Look down. Look down. Look down.
This is the only thing I've ever played where there are no other real characters to interact with, and yet I never ever feel alone.
Go in. You have to go in. It's too dark. Take it. This will help you. You have to be able to see.
The team at Ninja Theory worked with real therapists and psychologists to build as accurate a portrayal of psychosis as they possibly could. Psychosis is a collection of symptoms I've never experienced, but allegedly what we see Senua go through is pretty damn on point. This game does a spectacular job of illustrating inner conflict in one of the most visually and auditorily bombastic ways imaginable. I'm going to tell you how the final stretch of the game works. This is technically a spoiler, but the game has been out for 6 years now, and I'm not going to tell you what it means for Senua's story, but I am going to tell you what it means for mine. Senua walks through a gate. The camera pans and we see an uncomfortably colossal being. She charges for it, screaming, dripping with blood and rage. The being shrieks, and she is blown back only to find herself confronted with a horde of illusions. She fights them off. The process repeats. She falls and coughs up blood. Another horde. She fights on. This time the enemies are tougher. I fight harder. Again she charges, again more enemies. I move, she moves. I swing, she swings. I block, she parries. This backlog is getting finished and she is getting the ending she deserves. But as time goes on, I realize a few things. This fight isn't ending. The foes keep coming, and despite how many times I fail, she still gets up even though I've definitely hit a game over plenty of times in previous stages. More illusions, more than ever before. There are too many of them and I can't realistically keep up. I begin to get angry. How on earth could the devs expect anyone to last this long, much less think this is fun? There are too damn many. Again and again she falls. Again and again more enemies spawn. I grit my teeth and I swear, there is no end to this. Let me fight the final boss already. But the voices begin to chime in.
You're going to die.
And I ignore them. I'm going to win. Senua falls.
Let go, Senua.
I don't let go.
Stop.
I don't stop.
Let go, Senua.
I won't. I have to beat this. It's my last game. I have to do this. I want to be done. I want to... I am then presented with an ending that 2 seconds into, I reject. I immediately pause the game because I'm sure that I failed and that this is the bad ending. I take to the internet and discover that you cannot actually win Hellblade. You can only lose that final fight. It's impossible intentionally. This is the only ending. Upon reading this, I don't really know what to feel. Poetically, I couldn't beat the final game on my backlog list. But maybe that's the point. I think the reason that final fight cut me so deeply is because it perfectly illustrated exactly how this whole year-long endeavor felt. No matter what I did, no matter how many games I played, another one was always there. Another one will always be there. It's an impossible task. Senua's tale is one of accepting and letting go, and that's what I had to do. This year has taught me that the only way to beat the backlog is to accept that you can't beat it, because as soon as it becomes a destination, you completely disregard the journey, and the journey is what we do this for, what we do anything for, why we live. Did finishing my backlog make me happy? No, it didn't. But trying to do so, experiencing all of the little things it's made of, every adventure, every romance, every friendship, every parry, every checkpoint, every dungeon, every chapter, every step, absolutely did. So, should you try this? Should you organize your backlog and finish it? Absolutely. Just maybe don't put a time limit on it, because that is unquestionably my biggest regret. I think the tracking list actually works wonders. Like I said, the habits are in me now. I've started my next backlog, a much smaller, more manageable list of about 20 that I'm thrilled to dive into. And I'm not afraid to try any genre now. I may not have succeeded, but I'm happy with who I became in the process. And I've had so many people message me over the year to share their experiences. People have sent their spreadsheets and told me how much they've beaten, how much they've prioritized and actually finished games they've been meaning to play for the longest. This clearly works for a great many people, so if you're interested in trying this, go for it. If you've already started, let me know how it is going down below. Down below. The biggest difference from who I was last year to now is that now I'm at peace with all of the things I'll never get to play, all of the things in life I'll never get to experience, because the pursuit of everything paradoxically costs you everything. Stressing over the backlog distracts from enjoying it, and I refuse to waste my life searching when I should spend it savoring. I wanted to spend way too much time playing Street Fighter, put 500 hours into a JRPG, play Resi 4 again on a higher difficulty, and then go write about it. And in between, I look forward to knocking down the never-ending backlog at a healthy pace. I'm grateful that I tried this. I hope you try it too. Just, don't give yourself a deadline. Play what calls your name. Don't be afraid to drop it if you aren't feeling it. Take your time, write about what you play, and don't ever worry about what's next when you're living in the moment. With a little bit of luck and with a lot of determination, there's no doubt you'll find yourself staring at the credits rolling with a smile on your face, speechless, save for one word. Man. Hey you, thanks for watching what is probably the longest video I'll ever make. Turns out recounting an entire year of events takes a while. Thank you so very much for making this possible. The support I've had around this all year has been unreal. You are all amazing. If you like what you see here and want to support the show, for $1 a month over on Patreon, you can get bonus content like live streams, creative input, bloopers, weekly updates, and your name in the credits like you see here. Link down below. Oh, and I'm selling this shirt again, by the way. That link is also down there somewhere. Shout out to this month's featured patrons: Airman121, Fly, Jimmy Stewart, Michael Lockett, Pascal Case, Eustace, More Cowbell, and Neo. Thanks again for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know how your backlog is going in the comments, and please, genuinely, have yourself a damn good one.
I'm just kidding. But could you imagine